Hello everyone, and welcome back to Oval of Obsidian YouTube. Today, we have some breaking news. Kanye West is running for president. How will this potentially affect the presidential election? Let's analyze this in today's video. Before we get into today's video, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you will be able to be notified of my new content as I release it. And if you wish to go down to the description, join my Discord, follow my other social medias so you can stay up to date. With that out of the way, let's jump into the theme of today's video, analyzing Kanye's 2020 presidential run. Uh-oh, something political related. Let's hope the comment section stays calm. Kanye West yesterday on Twitter tweeted, "We must now realize the promise of America by trusting God, unifying our vision and building our future. I am running for president of the United States, #2020 Vision." He announced his 2020 campaign yesterday on Twitter on the 4th of July. Soon after tweeting this, CEO of SpaceX, Elon Musk, fully endorsed Kanye West for president, tweeting, "You have my full support." In modern politics, in the 1980s, nobody has received any electoral votes. Not John B. Anderson nor Ross Perot in 1992 and 1996. And no third-party candidate ever has passed 30% of the national popular vote. The best person who received popular vote was actually the best receiving electoral college vote as well, which was Teddy Roosevelt in 1912 when he lost the Republican nomination and decided to run against Howard Taft. It split the Republican vote, led to a landslide victory for Woodrow Wilson, and Teddy Roosevelt actually received more popular vote and more electoral vote than Howard Taft. This was the best performing third party, but that was in 1912. In modern politics, since the 80s, nobody has gotten any electoral votes, and they typically only get 6 to 8% if they perform extremely well. If we look at the 2016 election, we go and try and find the third party candidates here. You get Gary Johnson, who ran. Gary Johnson only received 3%. Jill Stein only got 1% of the vote. And an important thing to mention about Jill Stein only getting 1% of the vote is because Jill Stein was only on 45 out of the 51 ballots. She did not meet the requirements to get onto all 51 of the ballots. And this will be something important that I mentioned about Kanye West in a moment. A poll from YouGov back in 2015 on if Kanye West would run in 2020 came back with about 6% considering voting for him, 20% not considering voting for him, 65% not wanting him to run at all, and 10% not sure. A CNN poll in 2018, it showed him at 23% favorability and 53% unfavorable. It also showed that he was more approved by people approving of Trump as opposed to those who disapproved of Trump. However, it also goes on to say that among African Americans, his approval rating is at 15%, which is a good amount of African American support for an election. If we go back to the 2016 election, 88% went for Hillary Clinton, 8% went for Trump. That could potentially mean he's able to earn support from the African American community, take away from the total amount of African American support from the Democrats, and potentially Trump as well. However, there's a deadline for getting your name onto the ballot, and he's already missed it on some pretty big states. Kanye West will not be able to be on the ballot for Indiana, Maine, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, and Texas. It's important to note that the third-party candidates who have done particularly well, like Ross Perot, for example, did achieve ballot access across all 51 ballots. And yes, 51 because of Washington, D.C. Right now, if we subtract the states that Kanye West isn't eligible for, he would have a similar performance to that of Jill Stein, he would only be accessible on 45 of the ballots and would have to do write-in campaigns on the other 6. Now, this is not good news for Kanye West. He would have to increase campaigning in the states just to make up for the fact that he's not on the ballot. It's also important to note that Ross Perot was polling at about 21% of the electorate, and Kanye West would need to increase his approval numbers to get to that. In order to perform well this presidential election, Kanye West would need to work hard in write-in campaigns in the states he's missed, and work to get his approval rating up by about 20 points. Would need to get his name printed on a majority of the ballots. He's only up to 45 now. He needs to act fast in order to be able to get it, even at 45. If it gets lower, his national popular vote goes down significantly. If we would want to win, he would need to get his name on ballots surpassing 270 electoral votes, and somehow beat out Trump and Biden in the limited amount of states that he has access to. However, this does not mean he cannot influence the sway of the election. With a decent amount of support from the African American community, he could sway some votes away from Biden, but also with a decent amount of support from Christians and Republicans, he could also sway away some votes from Trump. Regardless, both major campaigns and their supporters will most likely view Kanye as a quote-unquote spoiler candidate, since many feel independent candidates take votes away from major candidates. However, others argue that the spoiler candidate aren't necessarily a thing, since many vote third party specifically to show support for ideals that aren't necessarily in the two major parties. With all of this said, let's analyze the states Kanye could best affect. First, we need to pull up an electoral map of the presidential election, and we need to disable the states Kanye West cannot have full ballot access on. So he cannot get full ballot access in Indiana, he cannot do it in Maine. You've got New Mexico, he can't access that ballot. New York, and North Carolina and Texas. So that automatically gets rid of some big states, big electoral numbers. Now let's fill in the safe states for the two major parties. So the Democrats will most likely win the state of Hawaii, the state of Washington, the state of Oregon, California, Illinois, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Vermont. And as for the Republicans would probably win Alaska, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, Nebraska overall in their 1st and 3rd districts. Nebraska and Maine operate their electoral votes based off of congressional districts. You have to win not only the state overall for 2 electoral votes, but then each congressional district in their state also has its own electoral vote. Kansas, Oklahoma, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, and West Virginia. These are just the solid states for them. Now, where would Kanye West do best? This leaves an opening of 163 electoral votes Kanye could compete for. He most likely would not win any, but if he did, he would not win all of them. This shows Kanye will probably not be president. For if it became a contested race and nobody won 270 electoral votes, it would go to the House of Representatives, which is primarily Republicans, Democrats who would pick Joe Biden or Donald Trump, depending on who has the House majority. With this said, which states should Kanye focus on? These states where he can most likely get the most percentage from? He probably would want to focus on states with over a 10% African American community that are viewed also as toss-up races this election. If Kanye were to want to get a decent popular vote, he should focus on states like Georgia, Virginia, Florida, Michigan, and Ohio. All with big populations, big electoral counts. Kanye West yet has to announce policy plans and other big things, but I will be monitoring the 2020 race as it continues on its course. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Do be sure to leave a like, keep it civil in the comments, and let me know what you think of Kanye's candidacy. Have a wonderful day.